Okay, we're up to page 111 in the middle of lesson 11. A potato from the chulin, not before ice cream. Meaning, even a tavshil makes you meaty. So even if you don't eat meat, but if you have a potato that was inside chulin, it would still make you bisari, and you'd have to wait the appropriate amount of time. That's the halacha of the Ramah. The Mechaber in Shulchan Aruch is actually lenient, but we don't, apparently even the Sephardim now hold like the Ramah, and therefore there's no advantage of marrying a Sephardi guy. Well, in that area. So there you go. Let's talk about, go down to the bottom of 111. However, if there's no meat in the food, but it was cooked in a meat pot, what sometimes we refer to this as, what's the term that we use when you use something from a meat pot? As ches. Fleisha kalim. We use fleisha kalim, so ches cut b'stari. Meaning, I use a fleisha kli that cooked chicken soup or whatever meat, and now I'm making a salad on the exact same pot. Having noodles on the exact same pot. What is the status of those noodles, the pasta they just heated up in a fleisha pot? So in such a case, it is mutter to eat cheese right after you've had that pasta. There's no reason to be machmir. Believe it or not, there are those who want to argue that what's the havamina to say that it's a problem? The havamina is that it was a dirty pot. You know, there's a little bit of we live in a society where we're much cleaner than they used to be, right? Our hygiene levels are much higher than in the old world. We have access to hot water, access to soaps. Not for healthier. I guess for healthier. Right? And therefore everything's sterile and clean. Like none of your mothers, would. I know jealously when I wash dishes, my wife rewashes them. She's not happy with my level of cleanliness. So the pot, perhaps, that they were referring to had a little bit of potential meat in there, and that's what the shach. The shach explains the Ramah is referring to food that was cooked in a meat pot, but the pot was not clean. And the chiddush is, the Ramah, it says it's mutter to eat milk, even though the pot was a little bit dirty. They might have emitted a little bit of fleishic flavor to those noodles that you had, which is a big chiddush. Because most people, there's a little bit of meat there, maybe you become fleishic. Okay. So the reason is simply because there's just not enough meat either between your teeth, men, going back from last week's conversation, ben hashinayim, or not enough meat to actually where it's a digestive type of giving off. And therefore it would not make you bisari at all for the 6 hours. Okay? You can't eat it with milk. You can't put Parmesan cheese on there. You can't put, you can't have it with milk, but it would not make you fleishik at all. What I would say is, in a rule, you shouldn't eat it with milk. Even if you're having a clean milchik pot, a clean fleishik pot, you still should not, and you take those noodles out. This question comes up a lot. Let's say shalashudis. Shalashudis, I make noodles in a fleishik pot. I want to have milk. I want to have cheese with those noodles. That probably should be avoided because the noodles were made in a fleishik pot. To have milchiks afterwards would be permissible. They shouldn't be at the same serving, at the same meal. Okay. So, what about onions and spicy foods? So take a look at this. Onions we know are charif. And if they were cut with a fleishik knife, you cut an onion with a fleishik knife, your onion is fleishik. And in fact, you probably should even wait. Well, I know, some ways you don't have to wait. Hang on, but wait till the next paragraph. No, you're right. My mistake. You don't become meat. The reason is, obviously, because even though you have a fleishik knife, and you're cutting this onion, and even though your onion becomes fleishik, you eat that onion, you don't have to wait 6 hours, because remember, the meat is not stuck in between your teeth. It's only the flavor of meat that's inside the onion. And also, you are not going to have to, there's no Indian of digesting meat, because there's really no digesting meat, there's just digesting an onion. And therefore, you would not become fleishik. Again, you can't have milchiks with it, but you wouldn't have to wait 6 hours. So the milchik onion, he says that you have to wait 6 hours, because remember, that's that milchik onion only if your knife cut that hard cheese, you understand what I'm saying? Not just a regular milchik knife. Has to be a knife that you cut real hard cheese with. Okay? That goes back to, well, what is considered hard cheese today? That's an interesting question. If the mozzarella 10-month cheese that's been aged has that status of hard cheese or not. Okay, let's go on. Oh, that's it. That's basically the end of this chapter. Let me show you. What's this last paragraph? So we are machmir, maybe to if you've had this quote unquote meaty onion, maybe before you have milchus, you should wash your hands and rinse your mouth. That's what he says there in case that's left over. Okay, good. So that was lesson 11. I knew we just had a little bit left, and now let's move on to lesson 12. Okay. So you're not allowed to place, even cold, a person can't have meat touching milk. Meaning I would not be allowed to take chicken and have it come in contact with cheese, even though they're both cold. What happens if there is contact between the two? You'd have to wash it off. So the question is, what about in the modern world today? Do I need to put my chicken and my cheese in separate bags with soapies? So today we live in the world, everything's wrapped up, right? Can't buy exposed cheese or exposed meat. Everything's wrapped up in tinfoil or in saran wrap or in something. So would I be allowed to put them in the same bag? So the truth probably is, Karadin, you probably could. Is it possible that I can get cut? That both of can be a cut in the packaging? Maybe there might be some type of contact.
Yeah. Not very likely.
Not very likely. But definitely it would be a problem if they were to touch. So if you want to say that the packaging might be a little shabby, there might be some type of cut. With meat, so then the juice could ooze out right to the bottom. Because it's not like a pure seal. So, anyways, if you're not worried, you don't be worried. If they potentially might come in contact, obviously that needs to be avoided, even though it's cold. Generally we say in order to transfer, they need heat of some sort. Even contact, we're not so excited with. Okay, so that's the case. What about if cold kosher food touches cold non-kosher food? You need to wash your food. You need to wash your kosher before you could eat it. Or if cold cheese falls into a pile of meat or chicken, the chicken and cheese will have to be washed before it can be eaten. Or if you have vegetables that touch meat that's cold, you want to wash off your vegetables before you eat milchiks with them. There is, however, something very important. Intentionally, you'd not be allowed to have these two items come in contact with each other. Meaning it's usher to create a situation where your fleishiks and your milchiks, or your meat and your milk, are going to be coming in contact. That's not considered appropriate. If it's done by accident, so you wash it off. The only time you'd be allowed to do it intentionally is if for sure you're going to rinse the item off. So the example is when they shecht chickens, they shecht them a whole bunch in a row. Guys who are good can actually do a chicken a second. And when they stack them up and afterwards they check to see if there's a treifa or not, sometimes you have a situation where that chicken is going to be treifa and it was touching the kosher ones. That would be okay. Why? Because all kosher chickens have to be washed, so you've got to salt them afterwards. So since you know for sure 100% you're going to be washing them because of melicha, you'd be allowed to stack them even though they'll be touching a non-kosher chicken. Is that practical today? No, not really. Well, at least not for you guys. So, okay. This is a great situation. Let's say you go to someone's house and they don't keep kosher. Return to page 117. Return to house unkosher. What do we have to be worried about in terms of dishes and everything? So, the Gemara says that if food is placed on non-kosher dish, you need to wash your food before you can eat it. If, however, the food is going to be washed no matter what, let's say it's like an apple that you're going to wash, then that would be okay. So at first glance, we would think, oh my goodness, can we ever use non-kosher dishes even for cold? But then it appears that all the commentaries are saying we're talking about a case where there's still residue. Remember I mentioned this before? In the olden days, things weren't so clean. So when you use a non-kosher dish, chances were you had like a little bit of schmaltz, a little bit of oil, a little bit of fat left over from the non-kosher food. Or you place even your apple on that dish, who knows what it could perhaps pick up. And so that appears to be the case itself. Believe it or not. So what we need to say is the following. If halachically, let's say I'm traveling to New York, and on my way to New York I stop off at a hotel, and my hotel, I open the cupboard and I say, oh, they give me a bowl. They give me a Pyrex bowl, and I don't have a bowl, which is very helpful because they serve Cheerios, which are kosher, and I want to have Cheerios for breakfast. Can I have Cheerios for breakfast using the hotel's non-kosher bowl? So let's go through the case. My cereal is cold. The bowl is not kosher. I look at the bowl. I don't see any residue. It looks clean. Am I allowed to use a non-kosher bowl for my cereal? Okay, that's our question that we need to figure out. That can be very practical. Have you had this before, traveling? Most mothers just bring their own, paper goods and stuff. So let's say you forget paper goods, or you're going to go to the store, but it's like 6:30 in the morning, and you want to eat something now, and you're not going to store till later. Okay, that's the case. So halacha is, if you take a look at the top of page 119, the Shach argues, or Raman that does, he holds that cold food, even if it's wet, meaning milk and cereal, can be placed in a dish that was used for hot, non-kosher food. So here we're saying that this bowl would be permitted to use even if it was used for hot treif food, bacon soup, I don't know, pig soup or treif soup. But the chances are in a hotel when you're using their bowls, it's probably used for cereal, maybe porridge. A lot of porridge is ready to be kosher. The Shach even holds that if the bowl was used for hot, you're allowed to. That's b'diavad. But if it was used for cold, everyone says you're allowed to use it. And so, one condition. And so, therefore, you'd be allowed to use this bowl on vacation. What would be an exception? If you're doing this on a permanent basis. If it's a place that you work, and you work there 5 days a week, you'd not be allowed to use their treif bowls, even for cold, on a daily basis, because that's regular. Irregular, like I'm passing through the town for a day or two, that's not regular, that is permissible to do. Okay? So your office, you would not be allowed to use it. In the hotel, it would be permitted for temporary use. We're moving quickly. Eating at a non-kosher restaurant. So, salads are a big problem. How can you have salads at a non-kosher restaurant? There could be bugs, there could be who knows what. That would be very, very problematic. Remember that Chazal had so many gzeras of eating with non-Jews. For example, Bishalakim, Stam Yenam, right? Yain Nesach is wine that was used for sacramental purposes among the non-Jews. That's a problem. That's Mitaраisa. But even wine that was not used for idolatrous purposes, called Stam Yenam, you're not allowed to have. Right? Because how could wine not be kosher? They had to as a treif. The answer is because since wine was used for socialization purposes, they didn't want Jews and non-Jews to have normal relationships, and they wanted to become socialized together, and therefore they said, Stam Yenam, even all their wine, you're not allowed to have. Which is why, if you want to buy kosher wine, it has to have hashgacha. If you want to make your own wine, it has to be, you can't buy anything from anybody, it has to be, you have to buy the grapes and then crush them yourself, which is what I do. So, if that's the case, would I be allowed to attend by the way, this Wednesday, Lunch and Learn through our Chuchina, we're talking about non-kosher business lunches. Good topic. Would I be allowed to even attend a non-Jewish wedding? and the non-Jewish wedding, they're going to serve me my own food, triple, quadruple wrapped. Would I be allowed to do that? So again, there are those who say you should avoid eating any type of, with non-Jews, having some type of celebration with non-Jews. If you want to stand on the side is one thing, but should you be celebrating non-Jews? That might be the whole gzera, you're not to socialize with them. Rav Schachter, why you actually says you can't even go to a bar because it's not appropriate to go to a non-Jewish bar, right? It's where you should be going. He says feels that's part of the gzera as well. People go on dates a lot at the bars. I don't know, but that's what he says. You should go to non-Jewish bars. In terms of a non-kosher restaurant, so this is really important in terms of Baris Ayin. We touched on this before, and we dealt with this issue. Let's go through the case. I'd say I live in downtown Toronto, and I'm going to a restaurant with my non-Jewish friends, my non-Jewish colleagues. Am I allowed to walk into that restaurant? Is it a problem of Maris Ayin? So let's define. What is considered Maris Ayin? What am I worried about? What might people say? That either look at Greenberg, he's a hypocrite, he's going to an non-kosher restaurant.
Or that if you're going, you must be okay.
If he or she goes, yeah, it must be a kosher restaurant. You'll notice when COR does events outside of a shul, apparently these halls, they put up a sign, and they say, this event is under COR only, meaning if you come by tomorrow for dinner, it could be treif. So when there's exclusive kosher catering, which is essentially just in shuls, they don't need to put up such a sign. If you're going to a place where they can have kosher and not kosher kitchens, some of these halls or at certain events, they have to put up a sign. This is for kosher tonight only, so that people don't. It could be a problem. So, what's the case? We're going to a non-kosher restaurant. What will another Jew see when they see them going there? So, here's what I think the answer is. First of all, you shouldn't go there ideally to a non-kosher restaurant. You should go to a kosher restaurant. You're going to tell me, yeah, but there are no longer any kosher restaurants in downtown Toronto. Are you aware of this? There are no kosher restaurants. Oasis closed down. I'm sure you're not doing Oasis that often. But Oasis closed down. There are no kosher restaurants. What do we do? So it really is a problem for many different reasons. A guy wants to have a meeting. Everyone's going. He wants to go. He's not going to eat. For sure when he can't eat, I can't. So you tell me, I don't know what your parents, well, actually I know what most of your parents do. In which case it's not so applicable. But if your parents that says your father works downtown, is it considered normative practice for good, upstanding Jewish citizens to attend business meetings at a non-kosher restaurant? Is that normative in Toronto? Probably is. Your father works downtown?
No. He's a dentist.
He's a dentist. Your father works downtown? Your father works downtown? And no. So that's why you guys. Anyways. But I think they're somewhat accepted that there are situations where you'll have religious, upstanding Jews who go to these non-kosher restaurants and just sit there, maybe order water. The person who did it in the beginning violated Maris Ayin. The first few people who did it. If it's become accepted and no one's going to be like, oh look, now this restaurant's kosher, maybe we could assume that it actually would be okay. Again, I don't know if, for sure you can't walk into, at Steele's and Bathurst, a non-kosher restaurant, because there's a lot of kosher restaurants to choose from. If there's a plaza that has kosher restaurants, you would not be able to go to, the non-kosher ones, the business associates. It's often, Hamish Bagel, you know what I mean? All these places that are, where sometimes often Jews eat, that would be a problem to go to. What's that Israeli coffee place called, the promenade? Aroma would be a problem. Aroma serves, people think Aroma's kosher because it's Aroma, it's from Eretz Yisrael, and they serve mamish pig. They serve mamish pig, mamish non-kosher meat. So to walk in there to sit down would be a problem. People will think that that Aroma's kosher. If you're traveling to New York, you're driving to New York City, you want to stop off at some coffee shop, McDonald's to buy a coffee, Tim Hortons to buy a coffee, and I think people are going to think, oh my goodness, this in somewhere in Albany or whatever, upstate New York. I don't think people are going to think, oh my goodness, this restaurant's kosher because that guy's going there. People know that when you drive, you're on the road, and you're making a pit stop, filling up gas, going to the washroom, so you can buy a coffee. I think people are going to assume that No one else should think I'm mistaken. But to go to like the McDonald's or steal some bad foods, get a coffee, I don't think is right. You know, that's not the right thing to do. So, okay. Can I buy vegetables, cut vegetables, at a non-kosher store? So a lot of Loblaws, grocery stores. Why not? Is there a problem? So let's talk about what could be the problem with buying vegetables that are cut. What potentially could be the problem? A knife. Here's a knife that was used for chazer, and now they're going behind the counter and they're using that knife to cut vegetables. And you're going to eat those vegetables. What do you think about that? What do you think? Yes? No?
Probably not.
Why not?
Well, you don't know how well they washed it. You don't know what they just used it for right before. They could have used it for hot meat, for all you know.
Okay, maybe they use it for their bacon. Right, so when you have situations where the restaurants are a little bit bigger, not the restaurants, the establishments are bigger, and they have, like, here's their fruit section, is there likely they're going to take their knife that was used from their meat section to the vegetable section and crisscross them? Probably not. Let's go through the worst case scenario. This knife was used for bacon. How many cuts do you think with a knife will remove whatever bacon residue is on the knife? Because remember, it's all cold, right? 10, 5, 30. So chances are the vegetable that you're eating was cut with a knife that was cleaned. Why? Because they just cut 20 vegetables already. By the time you're having the 21st cucumber, all of the schmaltz, all the fats in that pig has already been assumed by the other cucumbers, no?
Are you going to depend on that, though?
So, what's the... What? Okay, so it could be batab shishim. Interesting question if you're allowed to rely on that or not. It appears that you would be allowed to rely on it because the vast majority of cases, the chance of that cucumber having schmaltz from bacon, when probably they're told they're not even allowed to use the same knife, and if they get caught, they get in big trouble. Is that it's probably a government policy, right? And I bet you it's not just a government policy, I bet you it's a store policy. And in the event it was mixed up, which is so unlikely, it's probably washed, right? It's probably washed in cold water. And even if it wasn't washed, the chance of you having that cucumber from the first 5 cuts are so unlikely that it could even look like to have vegetables that are cut with non-kosher knives. Sharp foods might be more of a problem because sharp foods are going to actually draw sharp foods are actually going to draw out the taste. So if you cut an onion with a tray of knife, there'll be a problem. Even certain, I would say, fruits could be more of a problem than vegetables because fruits have acid to them. Lemons and citrus, which could also be a bit of a problem. So you should probably avoid fruit that was cut up with a non-kosher knife. Again, unless you know for sure that they're using exclusively fruit knife. Which again is, I think, policy. You should probably ask. Someone said it's not a matter of size of the establishment, it's a matter of what's the culture of the establishment. What's the cleanliness level. Sometimes these small places have very high standards of cleanliness, and these large places do not, although we don't want to think that way. And sometimes it's the exact opposite, so you have to kind of find what's the mitzvahs. What are they really doing? Salad dressings, of course, are going to be a problem. You need a hashgacha on salad dressing. Cold, dry food. I mentioned you before, maybe an occasionally from a clean plate that was used even for hot kosher foods. Preferably it should be washed off and wiped clean. So you should probably wash it down at some point. Okay, sushi. I don't know, anyone really knows. Here's my sushi with hashgacha. And that is the conclusion. Okay. Any what time is it? 3:10. 3:10. Should we start for 5 minutes? Should we start it, not start it?
Sure.
Okay, yeah, why not? If we can start it for 5 minutes, then we should do that. We're all opening up our files there. That was
Around 13.
13. No, that is 15. Here we go, 13. Okay. Oh, this is a good one. Here we go. Let's go to the worst. Oh, the worst case scenario. Go to 126 at the top. Start this Gemara. The Gemara says the following: a roasted kosher bird, right, fell into a bowl of called a kutach, fell into a milchik type of dish. So again, we're talking about hot fleishiks into milchiks. Rav Chanina, the son of Rabbi Pashronia, said it is permitted to eat it. Rabbi said, who is wise enough to permit this, if not for Rabbi Chanina, the son of Baba Pamoshnia. By the way, see here that to become Mako, you have to be wise to be Mako, right? Meaning it's good if you're able to be Mako, it shows you have insight. So, to be Machmir is easy. Everything will be asked, right? To be able to say that it's permitted. Koach de'atera adif, the Gemara says in Beitzah. Okay. What is this referring to? Rav Chanina, the son of Rabbi Parishna, holds that when Shmuel said that when something is salty, it is as if it were cooking, and is able to transfer taste from one item to another. He is referring to food that is too salty to be eaten by itself. So, what's going on here? If a food is salty, there's going to be a transfer of taste. Why? Because meliach kiroseach, salting as if there is heat. And therefore, if a bird falls into the skutach, how do we permit it? Because we must have said that it was so salty. The reason is because this milky dish wasn't salty at all. Had this milk dish been salty, it would have created a chemical reaction with the meat that fell in, and would have made it usher to eat. But since it was at this neutral base, it wasn't in there was no heat, and therefore it didn't actually make the meat milchik, and you'd be allowed to eat the meat. So let's talk about what is the halacha at the end of the day when meat falls into milk. Question?
Even if the meat is salty?
Okay, so hold on, right, very good question. Remember, what about if the meat is salty? I think the meat was raw in this case for this chicken, right? The meat is salty, so what's the case? Here we go. Take a look at the bottom of 126. The Machaber holds that the bland food will absorb a kadei klipa from salty food, which needs to be removed. So, let's go through the case where I have bland food. If my chicken is totally bland, and it falls into this milk dish, that's salty. So the salty food which needs to be removed. The salty food doesn't absorb the bland food, meaning my dairy thing is okay, and just needs to be rinsed. If I can't rinse it because it's a liquid dish, then I'm in big trouble. But if I would be rinsable, let's say I have my piece of cheese. Cheese I think is salty, right? A piece of cheese which is salty. I then have my meat which is not salty, and there's contact cold between the two. What happens? Since there's a little bit of salt in my cheese, it will actually go into the chicken. And what I would need to do is I need to peel back part of the chicken, but my cheese I just need to rinse off the point of contact. Okay? That's the Machaber. The Ramah holds that salty food will be absorbed by the bland food. The bland food literally goes inside the salty food, and it will only be nullified for 60 times the amount. So again, if there's a point of contact, chances are there will be 60 times the amount to make it mutter. The Mechaber holds like the Gemara above that only salty food that cannot be eaten by itself can transfer taste. I mean, it has to be really super salty. The Ramah holds we're not considered expert in knowing what's super salty. Therefore, anything that has salt is going to transfer. So, if two items are bland and they come in contact, the rectified situation is relatively easy. We had that earlier this afternoon, just rinse it off. The issue is going to be salty food. And we live in a world where unless it's raw, there's going to be salt in it. There's going to be salt in it. That's just the reality today. There's sodium and everything. Okay? So, roasted or peeled or cracked. Okay. The Gemara, as you can see, says, what about forget it for salty? What if there's cracks inside? And if there's cracks inside and something could easily be embedded inside of it and travel quickly and spread quickly through the actual item, maybe we need to be worried about that as well. And therefore, even if it's not salty, we're going back to this original bird falling to this kutach. The Gemara says, source number 1, roasted. If the meat or chicken was roasted, you still have to remove kadei klipa. Why? It's coming in contact with something which isn't salty. It doesn't matter. The dairy, the milkiness, can still go inside this chicken that was cooked, even though it was cooked without salt. How is that possible? Because there's cracks inside the meat, and therefore the milkiness can still go inside. So either it can do that because there's salt in the milk that could then travel it inside the chicken, or if the chicken has cracks in it because it's been cooked, therefore it's kind of open and more porous, I would say, and it can go inside. Or if it's spicy or roasted and there's cracks, then like it says here, the milk can go inside. And exactly what the halacha is, we are no longer experts. What's cracked, what's not cracked, we don't know. And therefore, bad news, 128 at the bottom. Ashkenazim, hot or cold meat with cracks, or hot or cold meat that is spicy. Ashkenazim follow the opinion. About the Shach and the Taz agree. If the meat is roasted and cracked, meaning I did a dry roast with no salt, but it's still roasted, or if it's spicy, I add spice to it, and the milk is salty, and the milk is slightly salty, meaning it's a dish, it's not regular milk, isn't salty. I don't believe there's any sodium in milk. But sometimes if we've started cooking with it or preparing it, there could be sodium inside, then it's completely forbidden, even if the meat was cold, and even in an instance where there would be great financial loss, hesed merubah. So if my cooked chicken were to fall into milk, my chicken is toast when? It's cracked and spicy, it's been cooked. That's why I'm in trouble. What about if it's raw? What about chicken is raw and it falls into milk? Depends. If the milk is spicy, it'll also be a problem. Or my milk dish, I shouldn't call it milk. Alright, and that is why a lot of your foods, when they come in contact with milchiks or vice versa, are going to be problematic. The chances are, unless the chicken is totally raw, in many cases, it will render your food problematic. Alright, let's pick up on this a little bit more, God willing, next week. We're on page 128, page 129, to be continued.